In tonight's WGN Investigates, an in-depth look at Illinois' financial fiasco, or rather a small slice of it.
Yeah, investigative reporter Ben Bradley joins us now with what he found. Ben?
Ray and Micah, Illinois' 5 statewide pension plans now have a combined debt of more than $140 billion, which ranks among the worst in the nation. Yeah, we know that's a big number, 12 digits long. It can be hard to wrap your mind around, which is why we started looking into a tiny part of the pension problem, a drop in the bucket. But since it involves politicians padding their own pocketbooks, we thought it was worth a look. It was trains, not the paycheck, that caused Don Moffitt to run for office.
But oftentimes we have 100 or more trains a day coming through here.
He wanted a new bridge to untangle traffic jams.
But, you know, emergency vehicles, police, fire, and EMS, they can get to the scene sooner.
But in the years since, he's grown to appreciate the train wreck that is Illinois' pension system. If Mike Madigan symbolized power in politics,
there's a basic rule in Illinois politics. The political party that remains united wins the election.
It's his pension perk that may symbolize the state's money mess. Michael Madigan was the longest-serving Speaker of the House, not just in Illinois, but throughout the country and U.S. history.
You know what? I'm anxious to move out of here and wish all of you a good day.
The streak finally broken this year when he resigned amid an ongoing federal probe into allegations that ComEd took care of him so he would take care of it. Madigan, who's not been charged with a crime, is now retired and collecting a taxpayer-funded pension.
It's just continuing to skyrocket.
The head of a Chicago-based government financial watchdog was referring to the state's growing debt pile, but could have easily been also talking about the former speaker's pension.
We're already in crisis. That's what people don't realize.
Madigan is benefiting from a little-known perk passed back in 1989 that allowed he and other state lawmakers to bank 3% pension payment increases after reaching age 55 or meeting other criteria.
They're going to earn more in pensions than they did when they were working.
A 3% bump may sound small, but over time, for politicians like Madigan, who spent 50 years in office, it adds up to a lot, juicing his pension by 75% to $148,000 a year, which is $51,000 more than he made his last year in office.
If he lives till 90, he's going to collect more than $2 million in pensions.
Compared to a total of $1.1 million he would have received without the bump. And he's not the only one. We identified 40 other former lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle who are benefiting from the same pension pop. They include John Cullerton, Kirk Dillard, Emil Jones Jr.
From the perspective of the consumer, the constituent, the taxpayer.
And this longtime state rep from Hyde Park.
And I certainly didn't expect to stay nearly as long as I did.
She said at the time the perk was passed, lawmakers' pension benefits maxed out at 20 years. But if they stayed in office, they still contributed to the pension fund without receiving any additional benefit.
And I think there was a sense that that really wasn't quite fair.
Lawmakers voted to end the perk for new reps and senators in 2003, in part because the state's pension debts were piling up.
So all of a sudden, the system that looked pretty healthy began to look pretty anemic.
And it's only grown worse over time. The lawmakers' pension fund now has more than $300 million in unfunded liabilities, a mere drop in the bucket, though, when compared to the state's largest fund, the teachers' retirement system, with an $80 billion hole.
I get it's a tough problem, it's a tough issue, but I don't feel as if I've done anything wrong when I collect my pension benefit.
Those complaints will be confidential.
Curry was one of the few receiving the perk who agreed to talk to us. Most did not, including Madigan, who declined to comment through a spokesperson. Which is why we hit the road, driving more than 170 miles to the city of Galesburg, birthplace of poet Carl Sandburg, to find a lawmaker willing to give back.
It shouldn't be there. This is public service.
It, as in the pension perk, which boosted former Republican State Rep Don Moffitt's payments by 15%.
Keep in mind, when I started, the state was in pretty good fiscal shape. I was a high school ag teacher.
Not so when he left office in 2018, which is one of the reasons Moffitt took the unusual step of asking to return his pension increase to the state.
They said they'd never had anyone ask that before.
So instead, each year he donates the extra amount he receives and then some to charities and other local nonprofits in and around his hometown.
If giving it back to the state would help, we would do that, but we think it would help more people directly in our area by helping some of these not-for-profit.
The state, though, does need help, says this watchdog, who estimates that to pay off just the teachers' pension fund debt, that $80 billion, you'd have to lay off every teacher in the state for 8 straight years, and instead use their collective salaries to pay off the problem.
I do not, unfortunately, even though I live in Illinois, I don't have hope for Illinois.
And even if that improbable scenario occurred, taxpayers would still be on the hook for an additional $60 billion from the state's 4 other public pension funds.
This isn't something in the future. This is happening right now.
While the politicians' pension perk is a tiny fraction of the problem, it's the politicians' decisions over the years to skip payments to the funds for teachers and state workers that threaten to shortchange thousands and bankrupt the state. It's almost like a freight train barreling towards you that cannot stop.
It's been there, and some expressions, some say, well, they just keep kicking it down the road. I guess that's one way to say it. We haven't really solved it.
No, we haven't. Madigan's pension perk kicks in next year. Meanwhile, Illinois taxpayers recently received some positive news on the financial front when Comptroller Susana Mendoza announced the state had reduced its backlog of bills, so it now only takes a month or so to pay an invoice. Yes, that counts as progress in Illinois, where pension problems like this political pension perk, they start small, but they grow as tall as a Chicago skyscraper.
Wow. And one gave it back.
One lawmaker gave it back, but
That we know
it's
of.
all these tiny little perks, be it for politicians or labor unions or other people who are part of a benefited class that add up. And that's how we got here, in addition to all those choices politicians made to skip payments.
Thank you, sir. We can't seem to shake the spring chill. We're in for another frost advisory overnight. So when will warmer weather return? Tom Skilling maps it all out for you in your full forecast. That's less than 10 minutes away.
Also ahead for you, it's one of